Uszanowanko, moje nazwisko Przemysław Wodnik. Witam na interaktywnej wystawie Muzeum Ziemi Warmińskiej w Holsztynie. Oddział terenowy Jeziorne Kolonia. Tytuł wystawy? Holstin. Mechaniki walki i poruszania się.
Hello guys, I'm Audioman, and today I'd like to talk about the second demo for the upcoming game Holstin, a survival horror set in 90s Poland. Now, I apologize up front if I still sound a little bit sick, I've just had a cold, but other than that, I'm ready to finally talk about this demo and everything that it brings to the table. In my previous video on the first demo, I've already explained how Holstin nails the atmosphere and the authenticity of the time period, link in the description below, and I've also mentioned its interesting use of a fully 3D environment with a camera that you can freely rotate. But now the time has come for the first taste of the combat mechanics in Holstin. Now, I'm by no means an expert on gameplay balance, believe me, but I'll still do my best to talk about the system fairly. To start off, the demo takes place in the titular tunnels, apparently turned into an interactive demonstration of an exhibition, a rather funny fourth wall break of which this demo is full. You are immediately greeted by this friendly chap, Mr. Przemysław Wodnik, whom I will speak of at greater length later in the video. Right off the bat, you're introduced to the flashlight reminiscent of that from Silent Hill, except this one, other than attracting the enemy attention when turned on, also temporarily dissolves the plasmoid goo which we've encountered in the first demo, allowing you to move freely without the need for restoring lights in the tunnels. Also, unlike the flashlight in Silent Hill, this one needs batteries, and note that one moment in Silent Hill 2 doesn't count, and so you should keep in mind to use it when necessary. One of the ways to save those precious batteries is to sneak past the enemies, using the surrounding darkness, which brings us to the second mechanic of this demo, the stealth system. The enemies in the tunnels, of which there are multiple varieties with different attacks, can spot you in well-lit areas or when using a flashlight. You can enter stealth mode to try and sneak past them, and while they're not very clever, they will notice you if you get too close or make a lot of noise, such as when breaking something. And since this makes for another great segue, let's talk about kicking and dodging.
No dobrze, teraz możemy rozmawiać o tej energii.
These will be two of your major ways of avoiding enemies when stealth or combat are impossible or not desirable, but both also use up your energy meter. Both of these are fairly self-explanatory moves. You dodge to avoid being grabbed by an enemy, which otherwise forces you into a panicky QTE, and you can kick them to push them back or destroy certain objects that block your path. Each move drains your energy, and if you use up too much, you can't dodge or kick, and neither can you run. Energy regenerates on its own, but if used up completely, that regeneration will hold for a brief moment. It regenerates faster if standing still, and you will also find items that replenish it. However, when you get hurt, well, maybe I'll allow Mr. Wodnik to explain that one.
Chociaż, jak to mówi dzisiejsza młodzież, jak dostaniesz bułę na ryj, to żarty się skończą.
Health is kind of a nebulous concept in this demo, basically being the same meter as your stamina except in the inverse. The red part of your bar depicts lost health, and the more of your bar is consumed by it, the more your options are limited, as a single dodge or kick will use up all your energy when you've lost half your health, and you can't run when you've lost 3/4 of it. Neither is the energy replenishing when you enter the aiming mode. Oh boy, I'm just killing it with the transitions today, because this brings us to the most amazing part of this demo, the combat. When equipped with a weapon, you can enter this aiming mode that seems like it belongs in another game, and I'm not just talking about the obvious RE4 similarity. The fact that this is in a game that is otherwise a point and click is honestly mind-blowing, and also the fact that this system works so well, feels nice and responsive, and is overall a blast to play, speaks to the absolute love and care that Sonka puts into this game. And not only that, you can dismember enemies when shooting, and there's this system where if you shoot off their head, they become blind and fly around. If you shoot off a leg, you limit their mobility, and if you shoot off an arm, you limit the ways in which they can attack you. And their different mutations I've mentioned earlier make it difficult to shoot a particular limb, forcing you to be strategic. But wait, the Resident Evil influences don't end there, because this demo also introduces combining ingredients to create both healing items and ammo. You can find these herbs that will heal a small amount of health on their own, and you can also combine them with industrial grade alcohol, basically Holstin's equivalent of red herb, to create an item that will heal you up fully. You can also construct ammo from items such as scrap, gunpowder and nails. Now admittedly, this doesn't seem to utilize the idea I've mentioned in the first review, where I've spoken on how rare guns and ammo were in Poland at that time, giving Holstin a unique opportunity to limit these items in gameplay in a way that makes sense. But then again, this is a combat demo, so of course it has to have these things in it. And so I'll gladly take the showcase of shooting in exchange for a little bit of believability, which is more than made up for by the storytelling and the atmosphere. Speaking of which, let's finally get to the stuff that I do best: characters, writing and atmosphere. Since this demo focuses less on creating tension and more on action, the developers decided to lighten the mood with the introduction of one of the best characters in the history of gaming, Mr. Przemysław Wodnik. Just visually speaking, this guy is great, with the fishing vest and everything, and I also can't help but notice that he does remind me of someone a little bit. Oh my god. It's George R.R. Martin! This guy is not only the most Polish man to have ever existed, and speaking appropriately for that role.
Jako przewodniczący komitetu strajkowego prezentuję, żądania. Do kontynuacji zwiedzania potrzebne jest zakończenie marudzenia i obrazek z papieżem.
But he's also voiced by the absolute legend of the Polish voice acting scene, Włodzimierz Press. Mr. Press unequivocally nails every line of dialogue in this demo. And the writing is phenomenal, with Krzysztof Wach once again voicing Tomasz, who's the straight man to the eccentric and clearly a little bit insane Mr. Wodnik.
Nie może mnie pan po prostu wypuścić?
Oj, naprawdę się panu nie podoba? To ja strajkuję.
Other than their interactions, you'll also get bits and pieces of the lore from the different journal pages that you find scattered across the tunnels, of which there are plenty. They'll inform you about the previous inhabitants of these tunnels, as well as the efforts to drive them out and also set up this exhibition. I also have to point out all the different items in this demo being callbacks to brands popular in Poland, which always brought a smile to my face when I spotted one. Other than that, there really isn't a lot of storytelling in this demo, as its primary focus is to showcase gameplay, but overall, I'm hugely impressed. Now, there are some minor complaints, such as the energy meter being fairly unforgiving, but the recent Halloween patch has reworked it to be a little bit more manageable. I'd also say that I would prefer it if the camera matched the direction that Tomasz is facing when switching into aiming mode, because it can often be inconvenient to have to manually rotate the camera around before shooting, especially when you're in a tight spot. Other than those minor quirks, I'd say that this is a spectacular showcase of what's shaping up to be one of the best horror games of 2024, if they'll stick to that release date, which is still a tentative estimate. Regardless of that, I really recommend that you download the demo yourself, as it not only shows off these gameplay mechanics, but also allows you to have limitless fun with them due to the endless roguelike mode in it, the Tunnel Challenge. Basically, you start off fully armed and the plasmoid wall behind you is expanding, forcing you to keep moving. The enemies will drop rusty keys, a single-use item that allows you to open safe rooms full of items, and your only goal is to see how far you can go before you die. With that being said, these are my thoughts on the second Holstin demo, and so I'll leave it to Mr. Wodnik to conclude the video for you guys. I'm Audioman, and I'll hear you next time.
W imieniu prezesa dziękuję za odwiedzenie wystawy. Prosimy o wypełnienie formularza i dodanie naszego Holstina na listę życzeń.